mysteries.
Back in Honduras, Bill continues his own quest. He is anxious to see where the hand-drawn map given to him by Anna will take him.
We're just off the shores of Roatan, and as best we can tell, where X marks the spot on the Mitchell-Hedges map. The water here is about 8 feet deep and crystal clear. Perfect conditions to hunt the treasure. Mitchell-Hedges dropped overboard more than 70 years ago.
Though the waters are clear from above as Bill dropped into them, visibility quickly becomes a problem. The current is stronger than before, and it's hard for Bill to get his bearings. And down here, he must be extremely alert. This area is known for its sharks. But nothing is going his way, and we quickly realize we have hit another dead end. Maybe it's just not our day. But Lee Matuta believes there's another reason Bill came up empty. The treasure is cursed.
It is enchanted, sister. You can't get it. If you want that money, you got to break that enchantment. You either got to kill a rooster. That's what they say, kill a rooster, a white rooster. But you got to cut him, his neck off over the hole and let the blood drop down into the hole. And then you will get it.
Enchanted or not, Bill has one more lead to follow before returning to Belize. Anna has also left him 2 photographs. One shows the entrance of a cave. The other is a picture of the hills and shoreline on the nearby island of Helene. Perhaps the treasure and skull are buried there.
Just ahead, we go into the lab to find out what science tells us about the skulls and a possible connection to extraterrestrials.
It would put out all kinds of sensory phenomena.
And later, our expedition lures us into a tight spot, a claustrophobic's nightmare, when Mystery of the Crystal Skulls continues.
Bill Holman and I have been following Mitchell-Hedges' footsteps. In Honduras, we dove for pirate treasure, and Bill tried to track down another lost crystal skull underwater. And he will soon be returning to Honduras to follow clues in a mysterious photograph left to him by Anna Mitchell-Hedges, a photograph depicting the site of a cave where a crystal skull may be buried. Now, back in Belize, Bill continues his quest. We have returned to Lubantoon, the place where the Mitchell-Hedges skull is said to have been found. And I have a few hard questions for Bill, hoping to get to the bottom of where the skull ultimately came from.
You've come here with Anna before.
She remembered pretty much everything. It's changed a little bit since, when she was here, they didn't have quite all the different pyramids uncovered and everything, but she was able to go through it and point out pretty much different things that they found and where they found them.
Anna claimed that one day during the 1924 expedition to Lubantoon, she climbed to the top of a pyramid, looked down, and there, lying beneath the collapsed altar of a temple below, she spied a shimmering crystal skull.
Now, the actual pyramid where she was lowered down into, that pyramid doesn't exist?
Well, what they did is they've somehow taken it down. She said that it was a large pyramid, and they kind of took the top off of it. I never take anything for face value. I always try to weigh it out. She never wavered from what she said of finding it here. It left no doubt in my mind that she was here. She did find it.
But were the Maya capable of making such an incredibly intricate object? I spoke with Dr. Jaime Awe, director of the Belize Institute of Archaeology.
Do we know if the Maya worked with crystal?
Oh, certainly. We have found crystal objects in some cave sites that I've worked in. So, yes, to the Maya, crystal was a very important, very interesting, very significant type of rock.
Did they have the technology to create something like the crystal skull?
I am totally convinced that the Maya were capable of producing these types of objects.
Still, Jaime Awe doubts that the local Maya crafted the Mitchell-Hedges skull, And though Anna Mitchell Hedges claims she found the crystal skull at Lubantun, Alway and other researchers question her story.
Anna does not appear in any of the published sources about Lubantun. I don't know that she was ever there. Can you go out just a little bit? Sure.
In fact, Jane Walsh, an anthropologist at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., thinks she knows where it came from.
Mitchell Hedges purchased the skull at Sotheby's in London in 1943. I have copies of the catalog when the sale took place. I know how much he paid for it.
But Bill Holman has a different interpretation of that story. He says Mitchell Hedges had left the skull with a friend, and the friend's son had put it up for auction. When Mitchell Hedges heard about it, he rushed to Sotheby's.
And Mitchell Hedges got there, but he could not get it out of auction because it already had been put in and it was already listed. So he had to bid on his own skull to get it back.
In the past, Walsh has examined some of the most famous crystal skulls, 2 at the British Museum and 1 in the Smithsonian's own collection.
Welcome back.
Using an electron microscope, she first took images of an ancient stone carving. She says that the ridges look rough and irregular because the artist used primitive tools.
Essentially, pre-Columbian carving, Maya, most or if not all Mesoamerican people use stone and abrasives to carve.
Now, look at this image taken of one of the skulls. Notice the perfect parallel ridges. Walsh believes these marks appear to have been made from a diamond rotary saw. That would indicate that the skulls could not have been made before the late 1800s. To learn more about the possible age of the Mitchell Hedges skull, Bill Holman brought it to Jane Walsh for testing at the Smithsonian.
I took some silicone molds of some of the carved elements of the skull, which I later looked at under a scanning electron microscope. They indicated to me that it was carved using quite modern equipment and high-speed polishing tools, and certainly not consistent with the story that it's pre-Columbian.
So does this mean the Mitchell Hedges skull is not one of the purported 13 ancient skulls? Not necessarily. Some crystal skull experts see those same tool marks as evidence that a civilization vastly superior to our own must have made them. And they mention other scientific tests that disclose some incredible characteristics. Remember the Hewlett-Packard laboratory test done by Frank Dorland in the 1970s? In that examination, the reported properties of the Mitchell Hedges skull seemed miraculous, almost otherworldly.
Frank Dorland, who studied it for Hewlett-Packard, actually came to the conclusion that the skull might well be over 12,000 years old. And what he found about the crystal skull completely amazed him. He found that it would put out all kinds of sensory phenomena, from sounds to smells, and that particularly the skull would actually glow and light up at certain times.
And they also discovered that the skull was made from a particular type of quartz known as piezoelectric silicon dioxide, which we now use in all our electronic devices for information storage and communications. So maybe there's something in the original legend that said the skulls are containers of great knowledge or means of communication between the worlds.
So think of it as a kind of a solid state CD, a three-dimensional CD, and the optical properties of Mitchell Hedges indicate that someone was giving us clues that there's complexity here. You should preserve this, you should iconize it, you should worship it, you should keep it safe until you have evolved the technology to read what it says.
One of the most interesting things that some people say they've seen inside a crystal skull is the image of a UFO.
Up next, we enter a sacred Maya site where the ancients made a dire prediction about 2012.
For the first time in 26,000 years, the Earth is lining up with the galactic center of our Milky Way galaxy.
A coming cataclysm that only the reuniting of the skulls can prevent. When Mystery of the Crystal Skulls continues.